Now, I'd like to introduce the candidates running for the board. Duncan Allen doesn't seem to be here. Sean Briggs, Ruth Carter, John Clarici, Paul Godwin, Nicole Gottberg, Dennis Thomas, and David Yarbrough. Opening statement. Okay. Duncan, will you begin, please? Done. Sean will begin.
Hi, my name is Sean Briggs. I moved up to the area with my family when I was 9 years old, grew up here, met my future wife at Ponderosa High School in sophomore English class. Went to Sac State, started teaching in the public school system, jumped over to IT with the state. I'm currently an IT manager, well, supervisor within the state service. We wanted to move back up to the area to give our kids the same sort of wonderful growing environment that we enjoyed when we grew up here. And after moving up here, I started getting involved, coaching soccer, whatnot, and we noticed that there was stuff that was changing in the city. We had noticed events that we grew up with were disappearing, and just wanted to get more involved. So decided to go ahead and run for city council to be able to help try and promote that family environment, bring some events back, start new events, but in a way that was beneficial both to residents and to the businesses that are basically involved in the events. And yeah, also wanted to just be able to provide a transparent and open line of communication between residents and the council before decisions are made, because it really seemed like everybody was hearing about decisions after they were made in the Mountain Democrat or social media or other places, rather than being able to give all of their input.
Are you able to hear him in the back, or do they need to move closer to their microphone? You can hear him okay? Okay.
Ruth? Hi everyone, Ruth Carter. I'm a broker owner of a real estate company. I'm running for Placerville City Council because I'm concerned for our city. I love our city's history and the feeling that you get when you walk down the street and you know everybody. You get to say hi to your friends and neighbors, and that feeling of connection. I decided to get involved to preserve that feeling. A few of the concerns in our city are repairing and maintaining the city's historic buildings, roads, and sewer pipes. Beautification, preservation, and functionality are paramount to this. This is the heart of why I decided to run for city council. It's not an easy job, as I'm sure some of our current and former city council members can attest to, and it's very important nonetheless, and we need to step up and do our civic duty. That's why I decided to get involved.
All right, thank you. Next is John Clarici.
Hi, I'm John Clarici. First off, thank you all for coming tonight. There's lots you can do with your time, and it's good to do it this way, I think. I've been on the city council before. I was the mayor once. I'm on economic advisory committee for the city. I'm also the District 3 representative on the planning commission for the county. I've lived in town for over 40 years. I moved here from the Bay Area. I was born down in a place called Crockett. I first came here in 1976 when my sister moved up here. And then I moved up here permanently after I graduated from college. I graduated from the University of California. I have a degree in forestry. I actually worked for the Forest Service for a few years. And then I've done a whole bunch of things which are on my thing back there and not really important. We have 2 adult children. They're wonderful. One of them owns a business here in El Dorado County, Whitewater Rafting Company, and the other one lives in the Bay Area, Mount grandchildren. If you get my flyer on the back, you'll see a picture of them. Okay. I didn't do the thing I said I would do. Okay, so that's that. I'm running because I think I did a pretty good job the last time. I know I'm an acquired taste. I know I can be off-putting. I made a commitment to one individual that I would stop doing that and try to listen more and talk less. I probably won't do that tonight because you're supposed to talk. I'm good with budgets. I'm good with analytical skills. I know how the city runs. The most important part of the city is keeping the city going. There's a lot of challenges with that. Rent income, providing services. I know how all those things work. I think I can do a good job. I thought I did a good job, and I would appreciate your help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, John. Paul?
Good evening, Placerville. I'm Paul Godwin, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters who for more than 100 years have brought clarity and participation to the voting process. And I would also like to thank our current City Council who have navigated a term that included the pandemic and some of the nation's largest wildfires right in our backyard, while continuing to do the business of this city. For those of you that don't know me yet, I was raised by a single mother, a widow with 4 children who went back to school and became a kindergarten teacher. She instilled in me a love of hard work and a belief that all people deserve respect and kindness. My wife Amira and I, who celebrated 31 years of marriage this year, are adoptive parents and raised our family in Half Moon Bay. We bought a home in Placerville 12 years ago. We camp, fish, kayak, and bike here. And when our son went off to college, we were thrilled to make this our permanent home. What I bring to the table is enthusiasm and a love and admiration for this community. One of the lessons I learned in Half Moon Bay is that a community needs to plan for its growth, that the balance of tourism and serving local citizens cannot be left to chance. So issues like traffic, fire safety and disaster preparedness, and working with the county to address our unhoused population are important to me. In San Mateo County, I was actively involved in the cultural community and built a music school serving 10,000 young families, which I ran for 20 years. Hiring and mentoring, budgeting, marketing, and operations for 10 locations helped me develop the skills that I bring to this job. I'm a quick study. I'm excellent at getting information and synthesizing it. I'm a team player and will collaborate to reach solutions. If you choose me to be your representative, my job will be to listen to you, and with that first, I will use my skills and intelligence to make informed decisions as part of your council. I'm Paul Godwin, ready to listen, ready to serve.
Thank you, Paul. Nicole?
Great. I'm Nicole Gottberg. I was born in Sacramento and lived in a variety of places throughout California and the world, including New Zealand and Peru, prior to settling down in Placerville 6 years ago in 2016. I've been actively involved in the community since getting here. Shortly after moving, I joined the Placerville PFLAG Board of Directors and served on that until earlier this year. I was appointed to the Planning Commission in March of 2021, and I am currently the chair of the City of Placerville Planning Commission, so I have prior board and commission experience. I'm a geologist. I've been doing environmental consulting work in California for the last 15 years. A lot of my projects have involved things such as the construction of roads, drinking water supply systems, buildings, and various environmental issues. So I'm very familiar with sort of a number of the types of things that would come before the City Council from a technical standpoint. I'm often on the other side in other jurisdictions. My top priorities are just navigating change and making sure Placerville is a safe and welcoming place for everyone. I want to make sure we have public safety, wildfire safety. Some of my other issues include broadband internet, sidewalks, bike lanes. And so those are some of the things that I'd like to bring to the city.
Thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. This is a great opportunity for our community to get a glimpse into all of us running for City Council. It has been an honor to serve on City Council for the last almost 4 years now. As I look back, I have had the opportunity to initiate many projects that I believe have and will serve our community well. As an incumbent, I believe that the last 4 years is my interview for the next 4 years. With that in mind, some of the projects I either started or was instrumental in are reopening the conversation regarding the flyover project that has led to the Trip to Green pilot project. The lights on Main Street, crowd favorite, I think. Developing our new Festival of Lights program with Al Soto, who has taken on that event completely on his own now with their group, and I think they're doing a great job. Brought the broadband initiative to the city for consideration, and we're moving forward with that. Was instrumental with Measure L and working with the team of those individuals to bring Measure L and a lot of money to millions of dollars to our city for roads and infrastructure, which has been critical, and you've seen a lot of that being put to work over the last several years. Our new pay online system has been a priority for both Mayor Taylor and myself when we both came on, and that's actually come to fruition. I personally initiated the process for updating our governance handbook. And early on, I worked on building bridges with Health and Human Services to move forward the homeless solutions that has now come to fruition. And at least it's a beginning for solutions. I wouldn't say it's the end of solutions, but it's certainly a really good start. And with that said, I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Dennis. David?
Hi, everybody. I'm David Yarrow. Thank everybody for showing up tonight. Like it's already been said, you guys could have done anything else but come listen to us. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters. This is a great opportunity for us to be able to talk to you, and you guys get kind of an idea of who we are. So with that being said, who am I? I'm a small town boy. I grew up in a small town in Northern California. After I graduated high school, I did a short stint in the Marine Corps. Once I got out of that, I went right back to what I learned in high school and went into construction. I did construction for almost 30 years until basically my body told me I was not allowed to do that anymore, so I got myself into a white-collar job. And I am currently a mortgage officer with a mortgage company. I'm also a real estate agent. I work with millions of dollars a year when it comes to finances and budgeting for many, many people, so I feel I'm very qualified to help the city when it comes to the finance and the budgeting. You are going to find out tonight that I am not a politician. I'm going to tell you what I think. Hopefully you like it. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. Come ask me questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. But my job that I feel working on city council is basically to bring your voice to city council. We need some common sense decisions for practical solutions for the city. The city is facing some things that I think with this coming economy and what we're facing today in our social environment is going to be very difficult for the city to deal with. So hopefully I can get the community to help us out and realize some of those issues and get some of those things solved so we can have a better city and a better community to live in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, David. I've been informed that maybe all of you need to remember to lean closer to your mics when you're speaking. Thank you very much. Okay. Sean, you were first before, so now Ruth will be first for the first question. What are your solutions to help our homeless?
Well, I believe that our city has to decide a course of action. The public obviously is very divided on the types of solutions that we have. I'm really excited, to be honest with you, the recent decision by Board of Supervisors to bring the Navigation Center to the Juvenile Hall Center, a building that's already constructed that in theory will take less money to get and time to get going and under operations. I think that will be extremely helpful to alleviating a lot of the problem that we have with regard to enforcement and the illegal camping that we have on Broadway once we have some beds for people to go to. So I believe that the city is going to have to work very closely with the Board of Supervisors and the county in general, and figuring out how to bring our law enforcement together and our health care together in that navigation center. I think that's going to be really challenging, but I'm up for the task and I'm eager to learn how we can facilitate that as a city.
All right, thank you. John, what are your solutions to help our homeless?
Yes, what she said. The county was always the big dog in this conversation, and once the county finally started to do something about it, there now is movement. Yes, once the navigation center is up, in fact, I spoke to our supervisor about the whole thing and even the longer term plans, which I'm thrilled with actually. Then we can enforce our no camping rules, and then we can start to point people in the right direction if they want help. And if they don't want help, well, they can't, make tent cities anymore. They'll have to abide by some rules. I think we can do everything and be compassionate towards people that are less fortunate. And hopefully maybe it'll spur them to make some decisions about their lives. There's not much more to say. I mean, the county, HHS, we have a role to play in the sense that we have to support all that. Certainly law enforcement, because it's likely that law enforcement will be providing service to the new navigation center, RPD. And so we have to come up with a way that makes that equitable for folks if in fact that happens. You'd be surprised how much of PD actually serves the county. And so those are things that'll all have to sort of be meted out and figured out. But I'm thrilled with it. I think we're on a path to where something can happen, whereas for a long time we weren't able to do anything. We've grappled with this sort of situation for a long time. When I talk to my son, he lives in a very nice place, and they have a lot of homeless people. He always just comes home and says, "Dad, I'm sorry, I don't like talking about this anymore." So anyway, that's it.
All right, thank you, John. Paul?
This is an important issue for me, and I was delighted to see the magic puzzle game that Supervisors Harlan and Thomas put together to create the navigation center. My feelings about it are that a humane and just society helps its citizens that have problems. And I think we can all probably agree that anyone who's living on the street is experiencing problems. There's a lot of variety among people that wind up on the street. So I also would like to say that many of us know someone who is probably one critical illness away from winding up in crippling debt and possible loss of their home. I think that the city, we have the problem. I mean, we have a homeless encampment on Upper Broadway. We have to deal with that, but we don't have Health and Human Services. That's on the county. And the county has made, I think, some great steps forward to try to remedy this, and we're going to have to work together with the county to make it happen. It's not going to happen, automatically by any means. Finally, I have been speaking with a bunch of the homeless, just hearing from them, and our regular citizens, and I've heard a great idea for a program, which is a kind of a work program for those that are ready to work and maybe pick up trash or something. Other cities have installed this. They get a vest, they're identified, they maybe get some extra perks or coupons for things that they might need, and it's been working around the country. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Nicole, what are your solutions?
Yeah, so similarly, I think it's important for the city to work very closely with the county on this. I advocated for and was very happy to see the county move forward with the navigation center, and that being in the city of Placerville city limits. So I think that's kind of a crucial piece to the puzzle. I think it's important to show compassion to everyone. I think certainly we need help for people who want the help. I think it's important to respect everybody's has the same constitutional freedoms, and we need to make sure that we are abiding by that no matter who you are. And I think sort of on the enforcement side, that will play into once the navigation center is up and running, sort of how to do that in a compassionate and fair way. And so that would be something more under the city's jurisdiction. But yes, very much just continuing to work with the county, listening to our houseless folks and what their needs are, and what would make them want to move forward with going to a navigation center or changing their lives. I think that's a really critical piece of the puzzle.
Thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
Thank you. It's hard to go forward without looking back a little bit and how much time and energy the city has put into getting us to this place right now. It has been a real struggle getting 5 supervisors and 5 city council members on the same page in order to move an idea forward. And even when we were close, we missed the mark, and then we circled back around. And the county really, I think, has done a good job. I think the ultimate solution that we have right now is a good one. The city has never had the opportunity to really take an aggressive role in homeless, in dealing with the homeless issues we have, primarily because we have never had the funding. And the funding has always lied with the COC and with the county. And so initially I came on, and one of my goals was to get involved with the COC, to get involved with the county, to encourage them and redirect the energy to the right locations so that we can get to where we're at now. One of the biggest missing pieces to this still is the health part of the health and human services, getting the mental health, the drug rehabilitation. Now, all those are going to be provided to some level, but that is one of the biggest challenges I see we are still going to face. It gives us the opportunity, this program gives us the opportunity to encourage those that want to continue living off the grid to find better locations. So it looks like I got a stop sign, I'm going to quit now.
Thank you very much, Dennis. All right, David?
Yeah, this is a minute and a half to delve into this problem. It's nowhere near enough. I definitely commend not only past city council, current city council, and councils in future going forward. There's a lot of hurdles to jump on this one. There is no one single solution that anybody's going to come up with at this point to be able to solve the whole problem. We've got a great start with the new navigation center coming in. There is definitely some things that need to be laid out, as Dennis mentioned, especially when it comes to the mental health, which seems to be more the majority of our homeless problem than anything else. I do know that the people that are on the down and out, like Paul, said, one paycheck away, it's a little easier to help those people because they have a little bit more motivation and they're a little bit more ready to get back on their feet. But when it comes to the drug addicted and the mentally ill, we've got a bigger challenge. Delving into that challenge is going to be tough, not only for the city council and the county, but just because of what we have to abide by state law-wise. So at this point, I would be kidding all of you if I said, hey, I got a great solution, this is what's going to happen. It's not. It's going to take a lot of work, not only with the city council and the county, but also the public. The public's going to have to help everybody out with this too, because it's going to take their input and what they think, possibly ideas from the public, because two members of city council, you're talking city council 5 people and board of supervisors 5 people. 10 people aren't going to come up with a complete solution, but hopefully we can get something taken care of as soon as we can.
Thank you very much, David. Sean?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of the stuff's already been covered. The navigation center is going to provide a lot of services, but it's not going to fix anything. It's going to help, but we'll still have the same problems, just in lesser degrees. Hopefully people will take advantage of it and get on their feet. That motivation factor is huge. I've employed homeless people before, helping them get on their feet, but it only works when they want to. And I think honestly, besides the navigation center and having beds for them to go to in terms of the camping laws and whatnot, is just very regular enforcement of any sort of criminal activity, so that you're able to go, and the people that are actually breaking laws other than just being in the wrong place can get the rehab, go and get discouraged from doing whatever they're doing, and hopefully that'll motivate them to make a positive change in their life, as long as we're offering those opportunities for them in terms of housing or rehabilitation or job opportunities.
All right, thank you very much. John, you will be the first one to answer this question. How do we provide more housing without crowding our roads and overextending our water supply?
Okay. All right, water supply. EID determines the water supply. I know it's hard for people to believe this. EID actually has a lot of water in normal years, and even after several dry years, they're doing very well. When you hear that they're selling water, that's a good thing. You have to, if you don't sell water, you lose your water rights. If you lose your water rights, you lose your water. So water really isn't an issue. The traffic, on the other hand, is. Almost every subdivision of any size has to do some analysis on their impacts to the roads. Then you go in and you ask for some money to fix the roads, if there's like impact fees or some level of mitigation so that you can actually do those things. The bigger issue is just getting people to actually build the houses. There are a lot, I'm on the planning commission, I'll just tell you what the biggest barrier is most people don't want houses built around them. Every time I go into a room in this county, they'll all say the same thing. We need houses, there's not enough housing, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, there's no place to live. And then you go, okay, well, where do you want to do that? And then they all point somewhere out there. It's never where they are, it's always somewhere else. You want to get housing, you have to start getting people to want to have housing. Look what happened, and I don't want to get into the whole thing with the fairgrounds and the racetrack, but they wanted to build some apartments. It wasn't like the state of California wanted to put a gargoyle on the Capitol. They wanted to build some apartments, and people were going crazy. But it's not just there, it's everywhere. So you have to kind of change the attitude about housing. The roads can be mitigated, and there's plenty of water. I just said so.
Thank you very much, John. All right, Paul, how would you?
Thanks, John. I'm very glad you answered the water problem. Yeah, no, good. Because, I attended the town hall in Diamond Springs last month about Dorado Oaks proposed housing project, a quote low income or low medium income project, and heard the public outcry. Had trouble finding parking at the Lions Club for the number of people that showed up and were against it, and I thought Supervisor Thomas surfed it very gracefully. The point is, what was considered low-income housing 10 years ago when that project was started is now at $450,000 to $750,000. So all of this community, and we have a very older population in this community, a good number of boomers and so on, and seniors, myself included, would love their children and grandchildren to be able to move back here, but there is absolutely not affordable housing here. So I am in favor of small project ideas that are acceptable to the community and fit our neighborhoods and create more housing within walking distance to our businesses. So this type of approach is a kind of medium density, like townhouse approaches, as an infill, perhaps in areas like Placerville Drive or Upper Broadway, or neighborhoods that already have commercial zones that are only partially being utilized. That's what I got. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Nicole?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things. One for me would be revitalization of our commercial corridors into mixed use, particularly Broadway as well as Placerville Drive. I think when you're working in an area that has been developed for commercial use and putting apartments in those areas alongside or above or below ground floor, you already have sort of the traffic situation with the roads designed to accommodate larger amounts of traffic. So that's certainly one thing that can help there. And also when you're looking at apartments and that type of use, there's lower water usage. Actually, during the last drought, major drought in California, urban water usage went down, which I know is a surprise to folks, but that's the reality. So urban water usage isn't really the driver, it's primarily agricultural in the state. And there's a new policy in place, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which I could talk about for a very long time, that went into place in 2014, so if anybody else wants to ask me about it after this. Yeah, I don't think water is much of a problem in Placerville, both because we have historic rights as well as some of the water management things that are going on at the state level as a whole.
Thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
I think we put the water issue to bed, so I'm not going to talk on that. Well said. Housing in Placerville, the biggest issue we have is people can't afford to build. We have lots. We have places for people to build, but it just, the cost is expensive. And by the time you get done building a house, any kind of house, it is in the $400,000 to $600,000 range. And so, the city has worked hard with, in cooperation with agencies, state agencies, and federal agencies to get grant funding to help for some of the low to middle income housing, or what we call workforce housing. And we currently have 2 projects that are coming to fruition. We just, I don't know, I can't think of it right now, what we call the funding mechanism that we just approved, but we just, it's a bridge loan, basically. And that's what it takes right now to get that type of workforce housing. The rest of it is people wanting to build. We have infill, which you mentioned, Nicole, which is a great idea. But again, that takes landowners and building owners willing to convert and build into their property housing. And so it's ways. Can we incentivize it? Can we do things to help people make it more affordable? And that's the biggest challenge, because it still costs the city to do all this. So there we go.
Thank you, Dennis. David?
Okay, so obviously we got the water problem figured out. Anyway, and I agree with several comments here, especially Dennis, when it comes to cost of building. Being a former builder and a current mortgage broker, I see these problems all day long. I get clients in my office that will go, hey, I want to build a house. And when I sit down with them and I give them the information that I have on what it takes to build a house, especially in El Dorado County, and by the time they get all their planning done and the cost before they even stick a shovel in the ground, and they're going, what do you mean I'm spending $50,000? So yes, that is an issue. That has been an issue in the state of California for a very long time. Pandemic did not help with our supply chain issues, so at this point, now we have materials costs, and I also have labor costs. Some of that is going to change. We are going to see some of that come down, but still at the same time, it's still very expensive to build. I am going to be the first one that will tell everybody I am not against housing. I agree with low-income housing. I mean, this state actually has a very lack and very short of housing period, let alone low-income housing. So the one thing you don't want to do, though, is you don't want to take away from our city and our town and what it is, but you also don't want to curtail to the folks that are the NIMBYs, the not in my backyard. If this county and this city is going to grow, we have to grow, but we got to grow smart. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Sean?
Yeah, and a lot of it's already been discussed. But the main things that I would take under consideration for any responsible growth is the impact to the current existing infrastructure and residents. We want to increase the housing, particularly in the lower and middle income areas, but there are areas where the current infrastructure isn't set up for it. We need to go to locations where it can accommodate it and where it's financially viable. Other things that could potentially not necessarily take care of the issue as far as the lower middle income, but with everybody transitioning to telework sort of situation or semi-telework hybrid, having a more widespread high-speed internet access across the city in different areas would allow people that do have a lot more money that are looking for a place to be able to live that's nice and telework from, to be able to come in and pay those higher ticket prices for the houses if they have that internet available to do their work from.
All right, thank you. And Ruth?
So I'm not going to discuss the water, because I feel like that's been covered. And as far as growth, responsible growth for our city is 5 miles. That's it, guys. 5 miles. We have lots of vacant lots. A lot of the problem that we have with building, it goes back to cost of building. And like David was saying, just the cost of getting, before you've even stuck a shovel into the ground, you spent $50,000. I think we need to look at, within our city limits, focusing on a streamlined process with regard to single-family homes, 1 to 4 units, and making sure that they have some of the historical significance in terms of their construction. Making sure that they have some design input. We have, right now we have, I believe it's 4 historical sectors to our city. And I don't feel like there's a lot of emphasis put on the few new construction projects that happen in keeping to that look and the historical value of our city. So I would like to see more of that. I'm not against housing. I believe we need workforce housing, but I believe that we need to develop responsibly. And I think that infrastructure is a huge part of that. You know, can our sewer handle very many more homes? I don't know the answer to that question. I haven't spoken with the city engineer yet. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, person who's going first next will be Paul. And the question is, how will you improve traffic congestion from US 50, especially on weekends?
Okay. I got the easy one. Okay. I'm sorry, is this thing on? Okay. Okay, so I mentioned that I'm from Half Moon Bay, and I would like to tell you not to go there, okay? Definitely don't go there on the weekends, and don't go there in the month of October, although I'd say that the Pumpkin Festival probably starts around Labor Day now and goes till Christmas. Unfortunately, and I guess Sue Taylor can agree with me on this probably, Half Moon Bay did not exactly plan for its residents when it decided to become the pumpkin capital of the United States. And we suffered, and beyond that, I will say that Silicon Valley a few years ago discovered the San Mateo coast. For our first 10 years there, it was absolute paradise. It was like a desert island. And all of a sudden, Silicon Valley began coming over, and you can't leave any of those communities on the weekend in any direction. And if there's ever a disaster, forget it. So I am really concerned about Placerville in this regard. I think Trip to Green is a great solution, and I think we should find a way to continue to fund it with technology solutions, like there are bollards, which are these automatic water-driven barrels that come up so we can reduce the manpower costs, human power costs, to keep Trip to Green running. And I think that we need to address this. We've got 50,000 cars a day at busy weekends coming through our community. We don't want them stopped and just polluting the air. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. How about you, Nicole?
Yeah, so I don't think there's any great solutions to the traffic problem on Highway 50. I think it's a realm for the residents of Placerville. You know, if you look at building an elevated freeway, you're talking about a many-year construction project, and having a freeway next to historic houses in historic districts, I don't think that's a great solution. There's not room to build in overpasses or underpasses unless you're talking about eminent domain and tearing down historic buildings. Again, something I certainly would advocate very strongly against. And so you're looking at either sort of accepting things the way they are with the lights, or implementing something like Trip to Green. And for me, I certainly want to see all the data from Trip to Green, but one of the things I've been looking at, kind of the two things on this, is does it improve the public safety for our residents? And does it improve the quality of life for our residents? And I did ask in the last city council meeting, and our fire chief responded that it is helping our fire trucks maneuver through the city. So I think that's a pretty big reason to advocate for doing that on particularly high fire weekends with heavy traffic. I don't want to do it all the time by any means, but I think, you know, there's a public safety component to it, and I think that's important for us to address. I also think sidewalks and bike lanes and making our city more pedestrian friendly so that our residents don't have to get in their cars to get to their shops safely. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
This has been a hot topic of mine for the last 4 years, because I think that the city of Placerville really takes it in the chin for the success of Apple Hill, Tahoe, the National Forest. And it really irks me that we have to inconvenience our community so that those people can have their day in the sun, and all the people that drive through Placerville. With that said, the turd's still in our pocket. And sorry, did I say that? It really is. My apologies. It is, we have to deal with this as a city. And in the Trip to Green has been an issue that has taken a lot of people coming together. The Transportation Commission has taken Caltrans, that has taken the city, our city engineers worked extremely hard on this project, and this was, when I first come on the council, this was a major issue of mine. And this pilot project is just that, it's a pilot project. It's going to give us data, it's going to give us information, and what we do with that data going forward is the next step. I don't think this issue is going to go away. Matter of fact, it's probably going to get worse. And so we have to figure out how to solve it. Trip to Green, I think works well for most people. You know, I think there's certainly some loud voices out there that don't like it. There's a lot of opportunity to improve on what we've already done. And I think there's opportunity to provide a safer environment for our city with fire and all these other things considered. So I look forward to seeing how this moves forward. I know we have a lot of good people working on it.
Thank you, Dennis. David?
Well, if everybody remembers back to our childhood, weren't we supposed to have flying cars by now? Wouldn't that make things a whole lot simpler? Yeah, Trip to Green. I've had a chance to walk around downtown, talk to business owners, talk to public, talk to my neighborhood. It's pretty much 50-50 out there, depending on who you're talking to, whether or not they're losing business when it happens, or their business is fine, or they can't get through town. Unfortunately, this is just another one of those subjects, just like homelessness, that it's going to take some time, some effort, and definitely not this city council, next city council, or maybe even the city council after that to get it solved. I, like Paul, grew up in an area that was absolutely beautiful, but going through downtown where I grew up, it took Highway 101, which before you got into town was a 4-lane highway. By the time you got into town, it was a 2-lane highway. So I know exactly what you talk about when it comes to getting things taken care of, because the only way to improve that was basically to knock all the buildings down and make the highway bigger. Unfortunately, they did improve it, and the improvement was a bypass, but that's not an option for our city or our county. It's not something we want to do, because the one thing we don't want to do is actually deter people from stopping in our town and enjoying it, because that's why it's here. It's not just Apple Hill, but it's our downtown and the outskirts of the town. I mean, we have grown to a really great position in Placerville that we are known to be a great place to stop, especially when it comes to the restaurants. It's not just bars downtown anymore. It's some amazing restaurants and some amazing people. So being able to solve this problem is going to be really tough.
Thank you very much. And Sean?
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of points that David made. Personally, myself though, the businesses that I've talked to, more than half have taken a hit during Trip to Green, and I do have public safety concerns over Trip to Green because it creates a massive confusion within the town as to how to safely get from one place to another. So if you've got something going on like a fire and the roads aren't behaving the way that people are used to, or that most roads around the state do behave, then you've potentially got a safety issue there. Do I have a complete solution? No. And there's lots of things that could be tweaked and fine-tuned, whether it be timing of the lights, the technology that determines when lights change, possible other solutions, but like bypasses would not be good for our businesses, because we lose all of that tourism that we've built up over decades. But the problem's also not specific just to Apple Hill, because I was glad Dennis mentioned the Tahoe thing, because if you're coming down from Tahoe on Sunday night, the traffic's backed up all the way to Strawberry. It's not specific to our lights or our town. It's just a Highway 50 issue. So.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Ruth?
I think it's really important to set the public's expectations. One thing that I would say that I noticed personally about the Trip to Green was that the times did not correspond with what the publications were. And I realized that this was an experiment, and it was, something that was needed to gather data to find out if this was something that was feasible. But I think, in the future, if we were to do something like this, I think it probably is the best way to alleviate traffic, given our unique circumstances, in that we don't want to knock down historic buildings. We don't want to have a flyover and have people completely bypass our city. I think that, you know, I don't know how feasible it is to have, like Paul was talking about, those barriers that are, you know, hydro pressure and they come up from the street. So we don't have to worry about the manpower to stay there and putting people's lives at risk while they're trying to deter traffic from making turns that they shouldn't be doing. So I think I'm really interested to hear the feedback from the city overall, because I think, you know, the loudest voice get heard, but I would like to see something go out and like our water bill and maybe take a poll with the citizens of our city and have people give real feedback on what their experience was with the trip to green, as well as analyzing the data that we received from the study.
All right, thank you, Ruth. John?
Okay, a couple things. It might be hard to imagine, I actually make a living as a transportation planner. First and foremost, people need to know, the city of Placerville does not own US 50. That is owned by Caltrans in the state of California. So any solutions out there are going to be at the behest. We can advocate and we can work with them, which is really how Trip to Green happened. But at the end of the day, it's Caltrans' highway. It's kind of like now in Camino, they had enough T-bones out there on the Rupley grade, and they said, okay, we're going to put a K-rail up the middle, and then they got some improvements to move traffic across and the like. Elevated or compressed free rail, hundreds of millions of dollars over many, many years. And I'm not so sure that it's even feasible for you to basically destroy the town to save the town. The operational thing that Trip to Green brought to light was that there might be a way to put that traffic through town and not disrupt local traffic. I drove around and I didn't have any problems getting across town, and I've lived here a long time, maybe I know all the roads. I do know people who live on Clay Street and Coleman and up in that part of the world, and they were happier than heck, because all of a sudden now you didn't have all those cars going through there. And I think people need to understand that as well. Nobody woke up in the morning and said, you know what we'll do Trip to Green. Trip to Green happened because there have been decades of people voicing their concerns about what happens to traffic in town because of Appleville and all of this stuff that happens typically in the fall. I have to stop. No, I wasn't.
Okay. Thank you very much, Don. Okay, Nicole. What have you done to prepare yourself to be a council member? What committees have you served on? How many council meetings have you attended this year, and so on?
So I'm on the Planning Commission, which I have been on for the city since March of 2021, and I'm the chair of that commission. I have either listened to the video or attended in person every city council meeting for the last 2 years. Since I've applied to file, I've sat at every city council meeting. So I'm just certainly up to speed on kind of the issues that have come before the council. I read the agendas every time they come out in full. I know some of our council members have gotten comments on minute details of contracts from me. So in that regard, I've definitely done that. I've also served on the PFLAG Board of Directors. So that's something that I did for 4 or 5 years as well. So I'm quite familiar with working with other people on a commission with different viewpoints, figuring out ways to sort of compromise and meet in the middle and find ways that you can work towards solutions with folks that may not have the same ideas or views as you do. And it looks like I'm going to get a stop here shortly. So so those are some of the things I've done. And then also in my job, I work together with a lot of people, a lot of government or agencies, with the state particularly, the water board, the state water board, regional water boards, etc. So I've been quite involved in those as well.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Dennis, this should be the easy one for you.
I've attended meetings for almost the last 4 years. Prior to coming on city council, I was on planning commission. Prior to that, I was 6 years on the fire board, and of that, the 4 years as chairman. I attended quite a few meetings. I was president of the PDA Association for 2 different terms over 20 years. I've been on a variety of different committees for the city, including the parking committee, some revitalization committees, going clear back to the 90s. I've spent probably my last 30 years preparing to be on city council. And just being involved in the city. I love the city. I've been involved with the city, and any chance I get to serve, I take advantage of that. When I think Mark Acuna is the one that years ago called me up and asked me to serve on the parking committee, so I did that. It's being out there and being aware of what's going on and showing up and participating. So I've enjoyed doing that, and I enjoy being on the city council, and I hope I can do some more.
All right, thank you, Dennis. David?
Okay, this isn't fair. I'm sitting next to a city council member and a city worker, so.
Wait, I'm sitting between two of them.
Yeah, right. So anyway, unfortunately, I have not had the time prior to my current job to be able to serve on, mini councils or things like that for this city, just due to work hours and whatnot. But you got to start somewhere. I have served on El Dorado County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team. I did that for a few years along with my wife. So when it comes to accolades for working for the city, that's about as far as I get to go. But you got to start somewhere. I have the time, I have the knowledge, when it comes to the finances. I have delved into many things that the city council is working on when it comes to, watching, basically being at city council memberships. I am a Zoom guy. So I get a chance to turn them on at Zoom, whether I'm in my office or I'm at home. So I've attended most of the city council meetings over the last couple of years. At this point, getting a start and helping the community and getting involved with the community is the reason I'm sitting up here. So hopefully, when it comes to that, I'll get a chance to help everybody out and help improve our city.
All right, thank you, David. How about you, Sean?
So I've been both going over the agendas and listening to the meetings, but I haven't been able to attend in person because of other obligations. But I've got experience back in my education days in curriculum committees, going and setting up the curriculum that we'd be using over the next 3 to 5 years, adoption of the Common Core material. I've spent the last 6+ a little years in both the DMV PMO or Project Management Office and the California Department of Technology Project Management Office. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the workings that go on with government projects. But yeah, nothing at the city level currently.
All right, thank you, Sean. How about you, Ruth?
I don't have any experience with the city of Placerville serving as a committee member. I am currently on the El Dorado County Association of Realtors board. I'm on the board of directors there, and I've been serving for several years for the Sacramento Association of Realtors and their internship committee, where I'm also a board member there as well as a mentor. So as it relates to the city of Placerville, I keep current with the city agenda, Board of Supervisors agenda too. Everything is recorded these days. Everything, we can get the minutes before the meetings happen, the agendas before the meetings happen. So I get the email alerts and go in and read about the issues, and I show up for things that I feel very strongly about. So I feel very, very informed and very connected because we have that option these days. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Ruth. John?
Let's see, in the 90s I was on the Park and Rec Commission. I don't remember, it was in the 90s. And then I was on an inaugural class of the Economic Advisory Committee in the early, whenever they made it, it was sometime. Up until I got on the city council. I've been on the city council, I was the mayor. Since then, as I said, I'm back on the peak because economics advisory, the business stuff is of interest to me and making sure the city's healthy that way. And I'm on the planning commission for El Dorado County. I was also the president of Hangtown Little League. I was president of the El Dorado High School Boosters Club. I have essentially worked in the government either as a consultant or directly as staff since 1991. I worked for El Dorado County for almost 10 years, and then after that I've been a consultant. I've worked with every government at every level. I was part of the group that helped put the lights, the first set of lights up over Main Street for the holidays. That was myself, Dennis, Rebecca Neves, and Matt Beerkamp, I believe, were that morning when we decided to figure this thing out. I think probably my biggest selling point right now is that I currently go about once a month and I weenie around the Druid Monument and I sweep up and tidy up around it so that it looks nice when people drive through town. I'm very proud of that. I've done a lot of things. I know the budget ones and others. Anyway, that's my resume. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Paul?
Yeah, like David, I have a lifetime of skills that I've developed in other types of organizations in the school system in San Mateo County. And I'm new in government, and I'm hoping to bring those skills and my enthusiasm, my ability to be a quick study and a team player to the city council. I've been observing city council meetings and supervisor meetings, chiefly online. The home that we bought 12 years ago was up in Pleasant Valley on the edge of the Cosumnes River watershed. And it was a 15-acre ranch, and we learned about how to buy beef cows to eat your grass, and I learned all the different types of thistle. And the reason I mention that is because the fire danger there was significant. That was an unburned watershed right on the edge of our house. And when Caldor broke out, we could see it from our yard. We were on the edge of the evacuation zone. The day that Caldor broke out, we closed the sale of that property and moved into a small cottage in downtown Placerville with a fire hydrant in front of it. And I say all that because we're new in becoming townies and wanting to help you all run the town, and I'm new in government. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. Okay, Dennis, you will be the first one this time. Our parks have had 2 decades of deferred maintenance. What will you do to upgrade our parks for local residents?
That's a great question. I think the biggest challenge we have with our parks is funding. Most of the funds come from either the general fund or grants or fees that are charged to the facilities and those people. It's I would disagree with the idea that our parks are that much in deterioration. I think that we're a small town. I think that we have our fair share of parks. I think that they're well maintained by some standards in some places. I know Lions Park is in need of a field upgrade, and I know that Rotary Park is very well maintained by a group of volunteers, and I think that's part of what it's going to take to get it done. We have funding, and we can allocate some general fund money, but sometimes, every time I think of general fund money, I think of how many police officers are we going to give up to do whatever we're going to do. And this is our funding for the city of Placerville is a zero-sum game. If we pay for parks out of one place, we've got to take money from something else. And it's a real balancing act. And that's one of the challenges of being on city council is figuring out how to balance our funding and what we're paying for. And I think, the idea of how a Rotary Park is managed with volunteers and with the baseball association up there, I think it's taken very well care of. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. David?
To a certain point, I agree with Dennis. I don't think our parks are really that bad. But in the same regards, we do need to upgrade some things. I mean, our city has grown. There are more families here, so we do have more children. So that's, requiring, a little bit more maintenance. Also at the same time, that's about diving into the finances of the city. Where's it coming from? This is where I think we really need to take a look at expanding our city limits so we can help increase that tax revenue, so we can have more money, so we can do things like that. We've been very small for a very long time. In fact, my wife and I moved here in 1998, and city limits hasn't gotten any bigger. That was 25 plus years ago. So, looking at that aspect of things, taking a look at our finances and increasing our tax revenue so we can afford more of these programs. And like I said, our biggest expense is our police department. Even our police department has issues considering our tax revenue, and that is keeping some of our officers, because they are actually able to go somewhere else to get more money, basically because we just can't afford it. So yeah, it's going to boil down to increasing the city funds to improve any of these projects, whether it's parks, buildings, parking structures, highways, the whole bit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Sean?
I agree with actually points from both Dennis and David. There is maintenance that needs to be done. I don't think that most of the parks are horrendous, but definitely things that need to be maintained and fixed up. The city, expanding the city limits for the tax base would definitely help, but we also may need to look at things like pulling in either nonprofits or volunteer organizations, as was mentioned, but going a step further, going and doing fundraisers that are targeted for specific improvements. We need to upgrade a specific set of playground equipment at a location, do fundraisers to pay for that, and get that taken care of. Alternately, if you are able to go and offset some of that paid for maintenance that's done by city staff, you could potentially reallocate that to equipment sort of maintenance without actually costing the city any more, because you're able to have basically just shift where you're getting the money from for which part.
All right, thank you. Ruth?
Well, I love community service projects, so I'll start with that. I think that it's really important that the citizens of our city don't place so much expectation on the government to solve the problem, the local government. I think that an appropriate response would be that we could pull together and create a Placerville Proud program. Maybe we have our own fundraisers, like Sean was saying, and maybe we are able to pull in some nonprofits or create a new nonprofit. If that's something that somebody is truly interested in, I would love to talk with them more about that and put that together, aside from whether or not I'm elected for city council, because I think that that is important. And so, yeah, I understand while the struggles are real with our current budget and our proposed budget, that the monies may not be there, that they may need to be taken from other places. I think that once our community gets involved, that we can alleviate those problems and overcome those challenges.
All right, thank you, Ruth. John?
I actually ran an organization, Hangtown Little League, that actually did exactly what Dennis said at the Rotary Park. You can do it. It takes a lot of very motivated people, and they were very focused because their kids were playing baseball up there. They also were willing to put in the work. And of course, we had very generous people like the Vera Camps, the Bassinis, all the I used to call them the usual suspects that would come in and help. You can do it. It takes a lot of organization, and I've done that, and it's possible. One thing about making the city bigger, in fact, I would want you to say this city hasn't probably grown in 100 years, except for maybe like a little thing, and it may be the same size it was when they incorporated it in 1854. I mean, the city is tiny at 6.5 square miles. It's a little place. But if you make the city bigger, you're not going to get the tax base. It's not property taxes you're looking for, because 96% out of every dollar goes out of the city. It's only about 4 cents. You do it for sales tax, but then you have things with LAFCO and the county negotiating that. It's a hard thing. I would be willing to say, well, I know the one part you probably pulled us off is Lions, because there's a lot of softball associations. In fact, I have a friend who's in the senior league, and he will come in and do it, and it's like, okay, fine. I think you could organize that. Other parts, it's going to be more difficult. They're little orphan parks, and it will be be more difficult to do, you get the community involved. It is possible, but it ain't easy, and you're never going to take money out of public works or the police department.
All right, thank you, John. Paul?
You guys wanted to ask me about music, right? I am a musician. I've been a professional musician my whole life. And the reason I bring it up, first off, I do want to say I love this group. I think we should all really be on city council because we're getting some great solutions down here. And I think it should take a little bit from everyone. I think we've got it done. The reason I bring up music is I've been affiliated with the Green Room the last year and a half, and it's really a fantastic professional music venue, and we're getting all these great people coming up from Grass Valley and Nevada City and Folsom and Cameron Park and saying, whoa, Placerville's it now, it's happening finally, or whatever. The reason I bring that up, we absolutely, the music community could get together and raise funds, and I presented to the Chamber of Commerce the idea of doing something called Music Month to show off all the amazing bands and music going on in Placerville in all our venues, bars and restaurants for a month, so we could contribute something there. Speaking of music, I was in Moss Beach, California, and that's on the San Mateo coast again, and we built a community park with community-raised funds, and my rock band, the Sippy Cups, which became a national phenomenon subsequently, started. The first gig was for Moss Beach Park, and we sang the Nirvana anthem, Smells Like Teen Spirit. I changed the words, and Moss Beach, Moss Beach. If we build it, they will something. I don't know. You got it. Okay. We did it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Nicole?
All right, so similar to other folks, I mean, certainly working with nonprofits and volunteer organizations is something that we can do. Applying for grants, but of course, when you're applying for grants, there's staff time involved with applying for the grants. I think certainly for vegetation management, it's very critical that we do apply for grants to maintain our parks from the wildfire safety perspective. And we do have things like Goldbug Park. I think we could see what we could do to potentially market that more and see if we could get more folks to come to Goldbug Park, which would help with the maintenance of Goldbug Park and potentially some of our other parks.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
I think I already answered that.
Did you? Oh, okay. You're right, I was looking at the wrong call. Okay, David, you're going to be first.
Yes.
What would you change within the city codes?
What would I change within the city codes? Holy cow, that sounds like a loaded question. To be honest with you, I would have to research, a little bit more about all of the city codes. I mean, are we talking about law enforcement issues? Are we talking about housing issues? I mean, there's all sorts of different things that, we could approach. It all depends on what we're trying to change and what we're doing. So, I mean, I know that sounds kind of like a BS answer, but at the same time, you're going to have to get a little bit more specific, when it comes to we need to change this or we need to change that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Sean, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I don't work with the city codes generally. I'm familiar with certain ones from construction projects that we've had to deal with recently, but I'd have to research to answer on any specific code for the most part. However, one sort of two systematic things that have come up with myself or other people I've known in terms of the codes is just the enforcement of them, consistently actually enforcing the regulations, and secondly, going and interpreting them in a strict sense, not trying to go and expand them to include other things. If something is prohibited in the city code, fine, don't allow it. But if it's not explicitly stated that you can do it, don't say that the city code bans it. Go and allow it unless it's actually banned specifically. So, just consistent, accurate, strict application of the codes. And if some need to be changed, going through whatever process we need to get them fixed.
All right, thank you. Ruth?
Okay, for the record, I cannot cite any specific code numbers, ordinances, or otherwise referenced codes. However, well, I am at a severe handicap at that point. You know, the one thing that I will say that I've come up in real estate transactions within the city limits, one of them had to do with a brand new solar installation. There seems to be some conflict between some city inspections that were done by different city inspectors. So I would just like to see, I guess, clarification between guidelines and codes in general. So like we have historic guidelines for our 4 historic districts for ways that people can improve the buildings and rehab the buildings, but there's not necessarily any enforcement on that. At least it doesn't seem like there's much enforcement where it's inconsistent. So I would just across the board like to see consistency with regard to enforcement and clarification. But I don't have specific codes to reference.
Okay, thank you. John?
They're more like guidelines. Anyway, I don't even know how to answer that question, so I'm not going to try. If I get elected, I'm going to change one thing, and that is this dais. I hate the dais. It is awful because quite literally, we are all staring at the clock over there, which is great if you're getting your picture taken because you're cool. You're looking right at those people. But you really, in order to talk to you, we have to do this. Over here, nothing. You guys get most of it. So if I get to be on the city council, I will come with whoever wants, who knows, I have a contract. I will come with a Sawzall and whatever, and I will literally cut this thing off the floor and turn it X number of degrees over that. That is my promise to you.
Thank you very much, John. Paul?
You know, I thought John was going to hook me up on that, so you really left me hanging here, buddy. Okay, I would be, if elected, your representative, and so I would be listening to my constituency and hear what they would like about it. That said, I would also be listening to the people around me on the council who have followed these issues much longer than I have. And with that, I will cede my extra time to Nicole, who is going to educate the rest of us.
Thank you, Paul. How about you, Nicole?
The expectation is high now. So I think that there's a couple of things that I would look at wanting to change. One is on our bed and breakfast ordinance. We currently require that it be a historic home. And I think by removing that requirement, it would open it up to more folks. So if you live at a property, you can run a bed and breakfast. Currently, it has to be a historic home to be able to do so. So I'd like to remove that historic home requirement on it and allow kind of anybody to be able to run a bed and breakfast out of the house that's their primary residence that they live in. For our commercial districts, right now we allow above and below floor development of apartments or housing. So I think we could do some side by side. I know we have some infill sort of regulations, but I think sort of modifying that to make it sort of more explicit that we could have apartments next door to commercial in our commercial zoning, particularly the highway commercial and the commercial zone. And then lastly, I think we need to make some changes to our formula business ordinance to make the language more clear. There's currently some language in there that talks about consistent with the historical character of the community and the use, and so it's a little bit vague, and I think that's led to some confusion in the past. So I would like to make that, language more explicit in that ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Questions? Really, one of the things that's been on my radar is, and I can't specifically speak to the state laws that are coming down, but the state is starting to open up, starting to mandate that cities provide or that people have by right to do all sorts of things with their housing. They can build duplexes, quadplexes on a single family house, a single family lot, and there's ways that if we implement codes that we can kind of, set some of the standards that we want as opposed to what the state's doing. I'm not totally clear on all this because it's been out there, but this is an important issue. And it's about protecting the character of our community. It's about protecting the character of our neighborhoods. It's about, some of it's about the parking limitations because there's no requirement now for if somebody wants to convert their garage to an apartment and add like an ADU or something. The state literally says parking, we cannot address parking with those allowances that the state has created. It's a lot of unfunded and unkind mandates that the state is bringing down on the city. So there's a lot of opportunities to address some of these issues as much as we can to belay some of the impacts that the state is having on some of these codes. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Sean, you get to be first. We're round back to you again. In March, the city excluded 501c6 nonprofits from holding events on Main Street, which included the Placerville Downtown Association. The PDA has historical rights to many of these events. What is your position on allowing the PDA to resume events on Main Street?
Personally, I'm not against any nonprofit being able to operate anywhere within the city. I don't know the reasons why they were excluded, but I would have no problem with them coming back. And I know they did run some of the events that my family has missed since we moved back up to the area that we've seen disappear and we'd like to see come back. Especially the historical events, or like historical themed events, I should say. Having them being performed or centered in downtown on Main Street or in other historic districts just adds to the feel of the events, makes it more successful. It sort of builds on the culture of the town as a historic tourist destination. So yeah, and I'd like to see that stuff come back. But it's not specific to PDA even. It's just I want an open door for anybody to be able to go and hold their events as long as it's beneficial to the residents and the businesses.
Okay, thank you. Ruth?
I'd like to say that I agree with Sean and that I don't see any reason that any nonprofit should be excluded from hosting events downtown. Obviously, there's permitting involved and there's safety provisions that have to be involved and paid for, and so long as there's an organization that's willing to do that, I don't see why we would exclude any organization from doing that. That's pretty much my stance on that.
Okay, thank you. John?
My understanding is that this came up because there was an organization that was using, there's a difference, there are all sorts of different charitable organizations, but some of them get very political and they actually will then do stuff. There's nothing wrong with that if you just want to be a political nonprofit organization. There's a million of them now. I think one of the challenges that the city was having was that folks were putting on events, they were making money, and then they were suing the city. And so, and there were these things going on. And so the idea would be just to pull it back to the city. The events are still here. I don't know which ones aren't. I mean, I know which ones aren't. There's like the craft fair, the antique fair. There's something else. I don't know. There were like 11 events, and now there's 8, I think. So the events are still out there. The other thing too about events, and when I first came to town in 1976, the wagon train was a huge thing. People got dressed up, not just the people in the parade, but the people around the parade. People would do the fronts of their buildings. The wagon train was enormous, and you had the Judge Roy B Club and the Clampers, and everybody showed up. There was a parade that happened, I think I might have still been on the council, but it was right around some time, and it was sad. It was sad. The wagon train was a shadow of itself, and it wasn't because somebody was trying to stop something from happening or hated history. It was literally, the train itself was too small. And so these things happen not because nobody wants to do it. I mean, the issues with the PDA, I don't want to get into it. It goes on forever. And as far as I know, all of those things are still happening.
All right, thank you, John. Paul?
I would like to just point out that I believe the City Council did reduce the number of the major Main Street events. If John's correct, from 11, I thought it was 12, down to 8. And they chose intentionally events that the local community really supported and looked forward to and participated in. And I think that's a great decision. And you know, not to beat a dead horse, but my Half Moon Bay reference and the Pumpkin Festival. We all the locals, the 20,000 people on that coast, hid out during that weekend because it's for the tourists. It created utter gridlock, and we couldn't participate in it. Okay, so anyway, I have that. As far as the PDA, I haven't followed it as closely, but I will say that I've been personally involved because I'm working on Oktoberfest here. And guess what? There was a lot of confusion. There was going to be a PDA sponsored Oktoberfest at the fairgrounds on October 1st. And then the downtown, a few of the downtown merchants hired a new contractor to create an Oktoberfest downtown. And guess what? I'm trying to publicize the event. And there's a lot of confusion out there, so I really can't see the sense in having multiple organizations trying to service our downtown. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Nicole?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about having events on Main Street that close the street down, there are a lot of impacts both from a public safety standpoint with emergency vehicles as well as just traffic for our residents. So if we're going to be doing that, I think we really need to think about, is it something that our local residents will go to and benefit from? I think the City Council did a lot of work on sort of narrowing down the list of events. And there are still events that don't involve a street closure. Girls' Night Out, I just went to that. So it's not like events cannot happen on Main Street, but I do think it's important to look at kind of the public safety aspect of it. I also think anything that's being subsidized by taxpayer dollars and using city resources really does need to stay out of the realm of anything, religious, political, etc. It needs to be something that's for all residents of Placerville, not only some. So.
All right, thank you. Dennis?
So the city, the downtown district is I think is an important area for our entire community. It's a place where we gather. Since this town has been here, it has been a place to gather. And it's been a place for our community to come together and put on events. When it comes to this issue of PDA, I think John pretty much hit it on the nail on the head, that it's the difference between a 501c6 and a 501c3, and what they use the money for. And I think that the council made a decision that having organizations that are designed and set up to give money back to the community, to support our community, is where we want to see our events and the profits go towards, instead of you pick it, whatever political activism group you want to have. We decided that's not where the money should go if these events are going to actually generate revenue. And so, and I think that's reasonable, because there's a lot of good organizations out there that have co-sponsored these events that do that. And there was a point in time where PDA gave events back to the city. They didn't want to do anymore, and so we took them on and we did it. And I think some of them, like Festival of Lights, have been a huge success. So and there's room. We spent a lot of time making sure that we had community input, business inputs, and merchant inputs to make sure that when we kind of locked it in, it was right for everybody.
All right, thank you. David?
Okay, well, it sounds like there's a really big backstory there, and I don't know the whole story. So, anyway, City Council is nonpartisan. not one side or the other. So I think city council needs to stay nonpartisan. If there are organizations and, PDA, Chamber of Commerce, CASA, I mean, pick some of the organizations that are 501c3s, 501c6s, basically your nonprofits. If they need to, if they want to put an event on and work with the city and do that, I don't see any reason for the city not to allow that. It will take some of the stress off some of, the city staff from having to organize these events also. And the events, they're about the community. So, and these organizations are the community. So I don't see any reason for these organizations not to work with the city to be able to put on these events, whether it's 8 events, 11 events, 12 events, or 25. That's the one thing that my wife and I love about this community is the fact that we have an amazing events that come downtown. Now, yeah, some of them have gotten less, like Wagon Train. I know a lot of people that were on Wagon Train, and when we first moved here, Wagon Train was immense. That was 25 years ago. And yeah, a lot of those people have gotten older and have the younger kids brought it in. So age makes a difference. That doesn't mean we can't have great historic events in this town. We just need to be able to all basically work together to put them together. So it sounds like to me that it's more of a bury the hatchet kind of issue than anything else. And we need to work with the people here to have this brought back.
All right, thank you very much, David. Ruth, you're going to be number 1 today. Should elected public officials take campaign contributions and endorsements from the Chamber of Commerce if they voted to give the city money to the chamber? Okay, raise that again?
Yeah. I think I understand the question. But I think for the benefit of the audience, maybe read that again.
Should elected public officials take campaign contributions and endorsements from the chamber if they voted to give city money to the chamber?
So I don't believe that they should. Personally, I don't think with any political candidates that they should be taking money from any entity that they benefit from. I just don't believe that that's right. That's my personal opinion on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. John?
I have to brush off the cobwebs, but my recollection is that the money that's provided to chambers to actually do things like promote downtown and do advertising and stuff for the downtown. So, this money is not, once again, they're not hanging gargoyles on the outside of the chamber building. They actually could, but no, they're not. They are actually doing good for the businesses of, in the community. So I think they make it sound like you're giving them money to go have a party or something like that. I don't know how everybody else is, but if you get some money from the chamber, it's not that big a deal. Maybe for some people it is, but it's not. It's not going to change my vote. I don't know why you wouldn't want to get endorsed, money or otherwise, from an organization that promotes and recognizes businesses in your community. It seems like, it's an interesting question to say the least. So no, I don't see a problem with it. And if somebody all of a sudden starts giving the chamber a whole bunch of money they don't deserve, then maybe we should talk about that. But my guess is who's getting the money to do the kinds of things that the chamber has done in the past and promoting businesses and the like. So.
All right. Thank you, John. Paul?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Should elected public officials take campaign contributions and endorsements from the Chamber of Commerce if that elected public official voted to give city money to the chamber?
Without me knowing more specifics of the situation, it would be hard to answer that. But on the face of it, as a kind of hypothetical question, it almost sounds like a trig question or something, but it does not sound kosher to me, actually. So Yeah, it seems if an official is already elected and they are, let's say, already in bed with the chamber, essentially, and the chamber is contributing to their campaign for re-election, and as a public official, they're involved with contributing money back to the chamber. It doesn't sound right to me. Thanks.
Okay. Nicole?
I don't see an issue with it.
Thank you.
So the question is misleading. So what they're saying is that the chamber, the chamber is actually giving the candidate money, and that's not the case. The chamber has a PAC, which is a completely different organization than the chamber, that actually gives money and supports different initiatives and candidates. So they're two completely separate entities. They do not cross-pollinate. And so the PAC is the group of people that get together and make decisions, and people fund the PAC, and the money comes to that PAC from all different types of, and it's not even called El Dorado County Chamber PAC, it's called El Dorado, I think it's called El Dorado PAC, Political Action Committee. So the question is really misleading. The chamber literally does not give money to or support candidates. It's the PAC that does that.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. David?
Thanks for that explanation, guys. That helped out a lot. Like I said in my meeting, David, I'm not a politician, so personally, I would not be taking money from the PAC, and especially when it comes to running for city council. And not to put city council down by any means, this is a nonpartisan position. We're supposed to be here to help the community. I'm a community member. This is why I'm up here to do this. I'm not here to collect money so I can buy more signs. I pay for my own signs. It's fun. I'm going to go out, I'm going to knock on doors, I'm going to talk to people. I'm not going to rely on the chamber for specific endorsements or extra money. So, maybe I can get into city council and help them get the vote they want to get the vote. That's not why we're here. We're not here to endorse things like that. We're here to endorse the people, you people sitting out here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sean?
Myself, no, from the way, at least the way the question's stated. Even if there isn't a financial contribution, if you're talking about an endorsement of somebody that has been on one side of a bargaining table or a transaction with another entity, there's a conflict of interest and they should not be taking endorsements or contributions from that. I work for the state. Anytime that we're dealing with any sort of vendors or anybody that could be in a contractual interaction with the state, we're not allowed to take more than I think it's between $5 and $25 in gift or like kind of contributions. And any sort of endorsement is theoretically going to surpass that dollar amount. And even if it didn't, you have no way of telling whether it will or not. So just the responsible thing to do would be to not accept it. Not that you have to disagree with them or say anything bad about them, but just to avoid any look of impropriety or conflict of interest. It's just safer.
All right, thank you very much, Sean. Okay, John, you're going to be number one this time. Do you support moving the upper room?
Boy. Do I support it? It's not really an issue to support or not to support. I do believe that the presence of and the upper room does great things. We're not talking about what they do and the good work they do. I do believe that the upper room in its current location is the reason why you have a homeless city up on Broadway. And to try to sit there and sort of work around that facility. I would like to see, now that we have a navigation center in place, I would be interested in maybe seeing the upper room move down towards, although it would be funny to have it right in the middle of the government center, to have it maybe on the west end of town. It is perhaps in the worst possible place in Placerville. I don't know if they could have picked a worse place. And nobody did that on purpose, it's just the way it evolved. But I would definitely be in favor of trying to help them move the upper room to another location that was closer maybe to the services and the whatnot that are going to be provided by the navigation center. But you're not going to force them to do anything. Not they decide they want to move, then yeah, I think we should try to help them do that.
Okay, thank you, John. Paul?
Similar to the discussion of creating pallet houses or tiny houses next to the jail to house the homeless without any services attached. The navigation center, to my mind, should be a central location for the services that the unhoused need. So that would include medical, laundry. They want Obama phones, they told me. But in their word, they said it needs an Obama phone kiosk. I don't know quite what that is. No, but they have phones and they have needs. And food primarily. So as was pointed out at the supervisors meeting, you can't just put up pallet houses next to the jail and solve the problem. So if the upper room is as great an organization as it is and feeding the unhoused, then and they would like to move to Fairlane or help with the provision of food for the unhoused, then I think that's a terrific idea, but it would certainly be up to that organization.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Nicole?
Yeah, similar to others, they're a nonprofit organization. They have the ability to operate by right anywhere that they're allowed to via our zoning, so I certainly don't think the government should be telling them where to be or not be, as long as they're within that. But if they would like to move, particularly with the construction of the new navigation center, to be closer to that, and that involves some sort of variance or something like that to allow them to move closer, I would certainly be in support of the city doing what we can to help make that easier for them to make that transition if it's something they want to do.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Dennis?
Nicole literally stole my answer.
Yeah.
It is true. They are a nonprofit. They have every right to be there. We can't tell them to move. We've contemplated what that would look like. And at any time we contemplate it, it all ends with we can't do that. And but the reality is they play a vital role in helping support the unhoused, the homeless people in our community. Now, whether you like it or not, how it's up there and how it supports the people living up there on Upper Broadway, that's an important conversation to have, because it is an attractive, what I would call an attractive nuisance to a certain extent. They attract people to live in that area. Wherever you put that program, it's going to create that same attraction. So if there's going to be a lot of not my backyards if they ever decide to move. The reality is as we move forward with solutions on homeless, that they need to be an integral part of any solution that we have, wherever it is, and how we develop our programs. And that has a lot to do with what the county does, what the COC does, and we have stayed in close contact with them and bringing, maintaining those conversations to hopefully bring them along as part of the solution instead of being part of the problem where they're at right now. And they are very interested in being a participant. So I think that's a really important part. It's about collaboration rather than telling them what to do.
All right, thank you, Dennis. How about you, David?
I agree with Dennis with this. I mean, definitely, we want the upper room to be a part of, I think the development of the navigation center. Now, I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I know this is a juvenile detention center, so I'm assuming there's a kitchen in it. So, and if that is something, or if it isn't something, why not put one in there and have, the upper room work with the city council and with the county on possibly putting them in exactly where we're trying to help people out at. This is going to give them a newer facility. It's going to put them right in touch with the people that, they are trying to help. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't, work forward with the upper room and the new navigation center to be able to do something like that.
Thank you, David. Sean?
Yeah, and everybody's pretty much said most of it already. Ideally, is what David was saying, if there was a way to include it within the navigation center itself, then now the organization is just providing the service in those facilities. The property's freed up for whatever other purpose that they want to use it to, whether it be to go and raise funds for the services they're doing or elsewhere. But yeah, we can't force anybody to move from their property. And so, yeah, we can encourage, we can offer incentives, we can try and work with them to get something that's mutually beneficial for everybody. But, yeah.
All right, thank you, Sean. Ruth?
So given that the Upper Room is a nonprofit and their own entity, it would really be up to them to work with the powers that be in making whatever accommodations that they wanted. I think it would be really wise to connect everybody that's associated with the Navigation Center in terms of the different nonprofits that are involved and see if there is a solution that maybe does bring them in, you know, a couple days a week. I know that they have very limited hours and that they only serve certain meals. You know, so maybe there's a way to work together at the new Navigation Center or in relocating, but they are their own entity, so they would have to make the appropriate connections.
All right. Thank you very much, Ruth. Now it is time for our closing statements. The first person to give the closing statement will be Paul Godwin.
Whatever John said. Yeah. I hope you've learned a little bit more about me tonight and what I stand for and how I would approach this responsibility. I'm passionate about this town, our culture and history, and our proximity and stewardship of the beautiful foothills environment. You've heard how I approach life with tenacity, hard work, enthusiasm, and collaboration, and especially listening to you. And while I've highlighted my commitment to represent your views, I'm going to use my intelligence, research, and collaboration to make my own informed decisions on the tough issues that will continue to face us. That's who you're going to get when you vote for Paul Godwin. I love books and learning a little something about everything. I showed up and wanted to be a part of the cultural community in Placerville by hanging out at the Bookery. And eventually, Darren, Heather, and Nancy decided to hire me. And though they do not endorse candidates as a business, as individuals, they are all among my list of endorsers, with longtime citizens and participants in the life of this town, like attorney Doug Roca, Charlie Downs, Elena DeLacy, Mike Roberts, John Conforti, and maybe you. Go to Paul, the number 4, Pville, to add your name to the growing list. I have no business interests except for the business of your roads, your water and sewers, your safety and well-being. I have the time, willingness, and the aptitude to be of use to this community. I encourage you to reach out to me via email or in person. I'm all around town most days of the week, and you can learn even more by going to paulforpville.com. Thanks for your attendance tonight.
Thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, so I'm a millennial and I've lived and worked all over the world, and I think that brings a different perspective to the council. Our millennial generation is the fastest growing population in Placerville per our last housing element survey, so I think it's really important that we're represented and have a seat at the table, and I think I'll bring some different ideas and perspectives to the table. I also think, I'm very familiar with government codes and regulations. I've, been very actively involved in city council. I do expert witness litigation work as part of my career, so kind of understanding the legal implications of decisions is something that I also know as well. So despite sort of being the youngest candidate in the race, I feel like I'm a very qualified candidate. I've been on the planning commission, I'm the chair of the commission, I have experience doing all sorts of things, traveling the world with Habitat for Humanity, building houses, doing fundraising for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I think that there's some changes that we can make with improving workforce housing by making it a little bit easier for accessory dwelling units and doing things such as making it easier in our commercial zones to have side-by-side development, which makes the numbers pencil out a little bit better. Still not great, but it's a little bit better. So I think there's things and ideas and sort of policies that I would bring to the table that I've shared tonight of what I'd like to do. In the community, I want to make sure it's a safe and welcoming place for everyone. I think that people who work here should be able to afford to live here. I'm a strong believer in shopping local. I think it's really important for our sales tax dollars that support our government, as well as providing jobs for our local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Dennis.
Thank you. Aside from having the honor of being voted into City Council, one of the second best compliments I can get as a council member is to have the respect of my colleagues to the extent that they have voted me into leadership positions. I am currently vice chair of our Transportation Commission, hoping to be chair next year. I was just elected second vice president of the League of California Cities for our region. I was voted mayor by my colleagues, and thank you for that. And it is noteworthy that for the year that I was mayor, it was probably the toughest year to be mayor in recent history. This has been pointed out to me on several occasions by every past mayor that I know. I know it was the most challenging time of my life, and to lead our community through some of the most difficult conversations that we've had. So tonight you've had a chance to gain some deeper insight into what I've done this last 4 years. And as you can see, I don't have an axe to grind or a personal agenda. I have been devoted to the city of Placerville for most of my entire adult life. And I have made great strides on the council, at least for these last 4 years. There are some issues I would like to see through, and so I respectfully ask for your vote for this next term of City Council.
Thank you, Dennis. David.
First, I'd like to thank all of you that are still here for listening to all of us. Second, Paul, if you don't get elected for any reason, I might want to hire you as a speechwriter. So, anyway, I am up here basically to give my abilities as best as I can back to the community. And the best way I see that is to get on City Council. So yes, I'm hoping for many, many votes so I can do that. At this point, you pretty much know who I am. Obviously, I am not as eloquent as some of my candidates that I'm running against up here. So, at that point, hopefully there's a chance. This is kind of the hardest part, what is the best way to close out the fact that I'm here to help the community? I'm a citizen just like you are, so if I can get introspect from you to bring back to the City Council, I think that's the best way that I can serve the community and serve the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Sean.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit and list off a bunch of qualifications. I think most of that stuff's been covered before. I don't have any financial interest in the city other than the house that I live in. I don't have any personal agendas or anything. Honestly, my only interest is in going and helping continue the wonderful environment that I grew up here and giving the public a more timely and accurate voice on the City Council. I got tired of going and hearing about stuff after the fact in the Mountain Democrat or elsewhere, and the decision's already been made. And so I want to give people an open access and early information to any decisions that are coming up, allow them to chime in. And as the other candidates have said, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you'll vote for me.
All right, thank you, Sean. Ruth.
So I just want to say that everybody in our city limits is so lucky that we have so many, what I can only see as good-hearted people that really care about our community, and what a tough choice this will be, but a good one, no matter who you choose, from what I can tell. So I know that we can all make a difference on the local level, and I have the heart of a community servant leader. Ballots go out in the mail October 10th. Please tell your friends and neighbors. I would appreciate your vote, as I'm sure everybody else here would. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. John?
Thank you, once again, yes, thanks for sticking around. It's not easy. I have dedicated my entire adult life to this community. I moved here and never really left. I did live it for a year and a half in Paul. We won't talk about it. We raised our kids here. Our kids went to school here. My wife was born at Marshall Hospital. We have deep roots here. I have been involved in all kinds of government. The reality is most of the government you deal with is balancing budgets and making sure that the lights come on every day, which is not particularly sexy. It doesn't get the headlines. It certainly doesn't create some of the heat that these other issues do. Without being too boastful, I was really good at that. I could look at a budget, I could get to the end of the thing, and figure out ways that the city could continue to provide services and actually grow its services. I have an eye for business. I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 20-something years. I have to go out and kill my dinner every night, as I like to say. And I have a tremendous passion for this community. I buy most of my Christmas presents on Main Street. Most of the bought meals that my wife and I eat is on Main Street and certainly within the boundaries of this town. I buy almost everything I buy within the boundaries of this town. And you know why? Because that's how this town survives. It's not all this other stuff. It's people going out and spending money and buying something downtown or at Home Depot or those places. I can do this job. I've done it before. I will try to be, as I said to Mr. Smith, I will try to listen more and talk less. And I hope to earn your vote when you get your ballots. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gang, for doing that. And now you may show your appreciation for their eloquence by applauding.
The November election is almost here. You can get ready to vote using the League of Women Voters nonpartisan voter guide called Voter's Edge. Simply visit votersedge.org and enter your address to view your entire ballot, along with the polling locations where you can vote in person or drop off your ballot. Every registered voter in California will receive a vote-by-mail ballot. You may fill it out and mail it in without postage, or you can drop it off at a secure Dropbox location or at a local polling place. Again, the election's almost here. Get those facts before you vote by visiting votersedge.org today. Your vote is your voice. Make sure you get out and vote this election day.